Hi everyone, today I'll be reviewing the Marvel Legends Supervillains Wave Red Skull action figure. A quick look at the box. At the top it's just plain black. Down the bottom there's some product information. Down the sides we see Red Skull happily holding the Tesseract. And then onto the back, the full version of that artwork, a description of Red Skull, the rest of the action figures in the wave, as well as some product information over here. And down to the other side, the same reflected artwork of Red Skull holding the Tesseract. So let's go ahead and get him open. And out of the box you can see the action figure on the plastic tray with the Zemnu Build-A-Figure headpiece, an alternate head, a Tesseract, a black pistol, as well as some interchangeable hands. First up, the Zemnu head is cast in a white plastic, furry textures all over, light blue wash down the front of his mouth, red plastic eyes inserted, and a riveted helmet at the top, cast in a metallic looking plastic. Red Skull comes with just one weapon, and this is a pistol cast in a black plastic. This sculpt is reused from the Star-Lord pistols, and it's got a pretty sharp yellow Hydra logo printed on the side. And of course Red Skull holds the pistol well in his default trigger hands. Looks pretty good on both sides. He comes with two pairs of interchangeable hands, and this is really generous of Hasbro. Both pairs of hands are cast in the light green plastic. One set are just fists, articulating inward, as well as outwards, and the other set of hands are just open gripping hands, articulating inward as well as outwards. So the hands are great options to get him into different poses, like getting ready for a fist fight, or other more dramatic poses. He also comes with a Tesseract cast in a translucent blue plastic, and this is something that we've seen before. And of course he holds the Tesseract well in those open gripping hands. And finally, he comes with a swappable head. This head is cast in a bright red plastic. Nice exaggerated sculpting for the eyebrows, the protruding cheekbones, his lack of nose, and some wrinkles around his top lip. Sharply applied paint applications for the eyes. He's got blue pupils, and I'm quite happy with the white paint for his teeth that doesn't bleed out beyond his lips. However, he seems to be short of a bit of white paint down the left side of his mouth. And to top things off, the entire head is given sort of like a dark red wash. And you can see that wash gathering down the sides of his face. The wash also brings out the center line down the top to the back of his head. And that extra head pops on easily for even more display options, so that's great. So Red Skull has a brand new sculpt with this generic jumpsuit or bodysuit. And we see this already being reused on Dormammu in the same wave. Zooming into his head sculpt, I'm quite pleased with it. He's got an equal parts goofy as well as sinister expression. His teeth are exposed, so that makes him look like he's perpetually smiling. Again, great sculpting for the exaggerated eyebrows as well as protruding cheekbones. His lack of nose as well as the bony structure of his face around his mouth. He's got the same dark red wash over the entire head, so it really brings out the features as well as the detail around his head. Now just a quick comparison of the default head with the interchangeable one, and you see that the interchangeable one has lips sculpted on, as well as that center line down the top of his head. Same great sculpting down the entire head, as well as the dark red wash, but I think I prefer the default head better. His neck is cast in the same red plastic as his head, and there's some good sculpting to show the wrinkles and the lines in his neck. It looks as though it's also given the same dark red wash to be consistent with the skin tone on his head. The top of the collar is painted green, and that matches the color of the bodysuit pretty well. There's also sculpting for the lines in the fabric of his collar. I do want to point out that as you articulate his neck, it might scuff against the top of the joint of the body. As you can see over here, the greens come off, so just be careful of that. Moving on to his torso and his arms, they just cast in a deep green plastic. Some sculpting detail over here at the top as well as the bottom to show the wrinkles in the fabric. A rather smooth chest. Black paint over here for the waistband. Moving down to his arms, nice application of yellow paint for the armband, as well as a very neat and clean Hydra logo imprinted over here. Nice to see that the yellow paint is applied adequately, so you don't see much of the green peeking out from beneath it. And then some more fabric detail down the sleeves to show how the sleeves realistically gather just above his wrists. And then some plain smooth wrist cuffs. Now after taking a closer look at his arms, I actually do think they're a little bit long in terms of proportion relative to his body. So the length of his arms might look just slightly odd, and that could be due to the design of the double hinge elbow. And moving on to the back, the same smoothness on the top part of his back, as well as the black waistband. There's some extra yellow paint scuffing over here at the top of his arm. And down to his right arm, we see the same fabric detail as we saw on his left. Moving on to his legs, again the same deep green plastic and similar sculpting to show the wrinkles in the fabric. as it gathers above his boot cuffs. And onto his boots, they are cast in a light brown plastic, some detail for wrinkling just above the ankles. So here's a quick side-by-side with the other Red Skulls that I have in my collection. I think the new Red Skull would sit in my collection as overall the definitive version of Red Skull. I like that he has the best proportions, the most intimidating physique, and while his overall outfit is plain, it is actually one of the more classic outfits that he's worn in the comics. And just in case you want to do some head swaps, here he is with the head sculpt from the Iron Skull figure. The skin tone doesn't really match the bright red on the new Red Skull, so it's hard to use any of the old heads on the new body. And if you wanted to, you could swap the new head onto the Iron Skull body as well. Looks pretty good, the neck just looks a little bit short, but otherwise this is a good display option for the extra head. And in case you're wondering, Chameleon's head sculpt does fit on there, so there's potential for the 90s animated series Chameleon coming out of this body mold. However, it does look a little bit small on this body, so Hasbro will probably make a new larger head sculpt for that figure. And for articulation, his head is on the ball joint at the top of the neck, and there's also another ball joint at the bottom of the neck. So those two ball joints work together to give him pretty decent sideways tilt on his head. He also has 360 rotation, pretty good downward tilt, as well as upwards. However, as you tilt his head all the way back, you can start to see the gap in the joint expose itself over here. Swivel hinge at the shoulders for 360 and going out that far. Upper bicep swivel for 360. Double jointed elbows, pretty good range, goes all the way in. But as you can see, this joint looks a little awkward once it gets into that full range. Swivel hinge at the wrist for 360 rotation. And since these are trigger hands, they're articulated upwards as well as downwards. So that's great work from Hasbro, finally giving the right articulation for trigger hands. He's got an ab crunch forward, a decent bit, as well as backwards, not too bad. Swivel at the waist for 360, ball jointed hips that go out pretty well, as well as forward and backward that much. The back hindered by his butt. Thigh swivel for 360 rotation. Double jointed knees for great range of motion. He can almost kick his butt. He's got a boot swivel as well for 360, so that's great. Ankle tilt downwards pretty well as upwards a fair bit. And of course very functional ankle pivot outwards as well as inwards. So the overall scheme of articulation is great. Maybe he could have used some butterfly joints in his shoulders, but that's just me asking for more. I think Hasbro has done a great job with this new body. There's definitely potential for a lot of reuse with more characters in future. Size-wise, he stands at 6.5 inches or about 16.5 centimeters. For some size comparisons, here he is with Crossbones and Nuke, with Hydra Supreme and Arnim Zola, with the big and regular Hydra soldiers, with Iron Skull and the MCU Hydra soldier, with Captain America, Hulk, and Iron Man, and he looks like a great size over here compared to the heroes, some Star Wars Black Series, and some G.I. Joe Classified Series. Overall, this is an incredibly well-designed figure. Minor complaints are that the arms appear a tad too long, and you might experience some pain scuffing in the neck area. Apart from that, the head sculpts are great, and this is the definitive look for Red Skull. The good articulation, sculpting, and use of different colored plastics in the body means we're definitely gonna see plenty of reuse for future characters. That's not a bad thing as long as the characters look distinct. Anyway, the body feels really good in hand, and I'm sure you will find good play value when you handle him. Please like and share this video, let me know what you think in the comments below, and subscribe for more toy reviews. Thanks for watching, take care, and hail Hydra!